Hello YouTube, Dave here again. If there's one thing that I always get a kick out of, it's a good old-fashioned reference to something. I don't know if it's just because I grew up in an era where things like Family Guy and other shows made a lot of culture references that I was able to, at least early on, relate to and find amusing. I don't know, it's just something that I've always found interesting about the products referencing one another. And going through my RPG collection, I noticed that I have a few instances of covers of RPG books that reference other covers. They could be two different versions of the same book from different editions with similarities. They could be, homages to past editions, but not like an outright duplicate. They could also be, where the covers are actually linked. So I got 5 examples here that I'm going to go through. And I'm going to actually start off with some Pathfinder stuff here. So obviously the first one would have to be the core rulebook with the player characters fighting off a group of red dragons, or not a group of red dragons, a group of player characters fighting off a red dragon. And then on the cover of the second edition core rulebook, you have a very similar scene. However, they actually do use different iconic characters, which I like. So you have the sorceress and the fighter on the first edition cover, and then you have the cleric, thief, or rogue, and dwarf ranger of all class options available on the second edition cover. But I don't know, I just love it. It even looks like there's similar ruins. Like you kind of see similarities in the design of the windows there with the iron bars, something being burst through. You got the same statue there actually in the corners. It's just like the more you look at this, the more you just kind of see these really cool references. It just, like I said, it looks like these two are taking place, in the same location, just years apart. I don't know. It's just a really, really cool concept, and it was the one that actually kind of started me thinking about a video of this nature, because, like I said, it's just a really cool nod to the previous edition, and I think it just makes a nice sense of cohesion between the two different eras of the Pathfinder role-playing game. So that's the first one I wanted to show off. Alright, so up next we are sticking with more Pathfinder. This one is more of a loose reference, I feel, but I still think that the two covers feel very, very linked together. And this is going to be the Game Mastery Guides for first edition. Here I have the Pocket Edition, and then we have the second edition Game Mastery Guide. Both these books are fantastic. So with this one here, you have like the one of the Rune Lords sitting on their throne with this blue dragon in the background. I'm not entirely sure, but I think she's another one of the Rune Lords on the second edition cover, and she's got a black dragon, and she's making her way up to a throne. It's just, like I said, it seems like an interesting sort of, it's a more subtle reference to the first edition one than, say, what we had with the core rulebook. But I still think that the two are very much inspired, or the second edition one is very much inspired by the cover of the first edition one, and they're just both awesome looking covers. But I will say that the Pathfinder Black Dragon is absolutely awesome, and I love to see that there. But yeah, again, just a nice little callback while still sort of doing their own separate thing. But it's just a very interesting cover as well. Alright, up next we have a reference to something that came far before, actually, but we're going to be taking a look at the Player's Handbook 2 for 3rd edition or 3.5 Dungeons & Dragons, and this is referencing the classic, iconic, often repeated artwork of the characters prying the gem from this large statue, this sort of like demonic statue. I don't know, it's just like this is just such an iconic image. It almost perfectly sums up a Dungeons and Dragons game in one single image. Especially the first edition one where you see like the characters looking like they're sort of either cleaning off their gear, checking a map, and stealing stuff. I don't know. It's just such a really cool concept, and I just like to see that sort of cohesiveness from especially considering that this was decades apart and not just a few years or even one previous edition. This is actually going back quite a ways, and I don't know, just a nice little touch. This image would also be referenced in several other instances as well. I want to say that it's the one of the more recent D&D 5th edition books actually has like this statue as sort of like an animated creature or an encounter that you can actually go up against. So just, again, really, really cool stuff. But I don't know, I just like to see those little callbacks. And as someone who has spent time researching the history of the D&D brand, or the role-playing games derived from Dungeons & Dragons at the very least, because there's a ton that I have no idea about. But just to sort of go over the history and just to see these callbacks are really, really cool. So just something that I always appreciated. Alright, and so we have our last two examples here, at least for the purposes of this video. Like I said, I'm sure there are several others. Even going back to the Pathfinder books, for example, I know that the Bestiary for first edition has a very similar cover to the Bestiary for second edition, but I don't have the original Bestiary, at least not at this point. It is something that I'm looking to get the pocket edition of at some point. But I don't have that, so I can't really cover that. And then there are some things like Keep on the Borderlands that I have, and then the Hackmaster Little Keep on the Borderlands, but that's sort of more of a parody than anything else. I could also look at stuff like the D&D Essentials 4th Edition starter set and the Frank Mentzer D&D Basic Rules from the Beckme set, but I don't have that set, and it's not an homage, it's not a reference, it's literally the same artwork. So anyway, but these next two examples are actually some of my favorites because they are products in the same product line from the same edition that actually reference each other directly. So the first one I'm going to look at here is the 4th edition Player's Handbook. So you have the Dragonborn character there, you have the Sorceress or Wizard character there, because Sorcerer wasn't in the first Player's Handbook, and that's a really awesome cover in my opinion. I just absolutely love, you got some of the characters in the background and stuff, but I just sort of loved, the way that looked. And one thing I will say that I always liked the cover art for the 4th edition ones. I loved the 3rd edition books as well. The 3rd edition books were trying to make themselves look like old leather-bound books, right? And that was, I think, a really interesting idea. And some of them look absolutely gorgeous. But I like just artwork on the cover of these books. So, that's something that I just really came to appreciate. But the reason that this is in here is because this scene is actually depicted on the Dungeon Master's Guide, in which you have this red dragon observing these characters through the crystal ball. So I'll just bring this a little bit closer here so you can sort of see. And we'll just show that one in a little more detail. Now, obviously, it's a much lower quality image of the characters inside the crystal ball, but I still thought that was a really, really awesome touch, and I just absolutely loved that idea. So, really cool stuff there. And then finally, the last example that I'm going to show is similar to what we just saw, but I would dare say it's probably the originator of that kind of referential cover. I'm not saying that as an exact quote, so please don't take it as that. But here we have the old Moldvay Basic Rules. Now this is just an awesome cover. I just love it. So you have the characters attacking this dragon. You have like a wizard, elven sorceress it looks like, or maybe just an elf, maybe just a wizard. Actually, I don't think I see pointy ears on her. I don't think I see pointy ears. But yeah, just really, really awesome artwork. But what's so cool about this is that when the expert rules came out, it did similar to what the 4th edition books would replicate decades later. And that is the image of someone spying on the events happening on the cover of the previous book. So here you have this wizard that's observing what's going on the cover here, as you can see. You have, the characters fighting the dragon there, with the stairway going up and the door up top there, and we have that there as well. So, I don't know, I just always loved stuff like that, and just nice, sometimes subtle, sometimes not so subtle. But I always love when you have things that just sort of reference their history or their past, or even just reference each other in the case of things that come from the same edition. So I don't know, I just thought it was sort of a fun little topic for a video. But let me know in the comments below, what other covers for RPG books can you think of that reference one another? So like I said, there's got to be tons of them that I just simply don't have access to, so I can only talk about the ones that I know. And then there are some, like I said, that just are more like parody products, or they just simply recycle the art, so I wouldn't necessarily count those. But let me know what you guys think and what some of your favorite examples of that might be in the comments below. Anyway, hope you enjoyed this video. Thanks for watching, and I will see you next time. Take care.